So now there's going to be checkmates against the White King as well.
Did he find
Rook
it?
h4. Rook h4 is game over. Oh my god.
Amazing.
What just
Speechless,
happened?
right?
Wow.
So these guys are just getting better and better every stream, just freaking out over these games. Now this was an Armageddon, so especially tense. It was between Magnus Carlsen with black and Vladimir Artemiev with white. It's the Chessable Masters. They couldn't be split after 4 rounds, and so if I show you the first couple moves here, you'll see Magnus, he's got less time on the clock because he won the bid process, won't go into all that, and it means that he's got the draw odds, Artemiev has to win. So let's see what happens here. We've got g3 on the board. Now this is a bit unusual, you don't see this on move 2 very often. Normally it's knight f3, but okay, Vlad's trying to mix it up and Magnus copies. Both players now fianchetto the bishops, and now this knight develops here, and it's a common idea not to come to f3, leave the way for the f-pawn to run, and leave the bishop open. Now knight c6, we see castles, both players push forward with these d-pawns, and Magnus now plays this committal move, but it's got some points to it of course. You clamp on d4, make that break really hard, take some space, but you do weaken this square, and that's significant later on. Now we see the knight develop. Magnus does the same with his, again leaving the way clear for his f-pawn and bishop. And now f4 from Artemiev, very classic break, his main one in the position. Magnus castles, we see bishop e3, bishop e6, covering this square some more. And now queen d2 was met by knight d4, classic outpost for the knight. And Artemiev now, he plays rook f2. Really nice plan. After queen d7, he just doubles these rooks, and we can see there's some action that could happen on the f-file. And now here, the computer does not like the next move, and it makes a lot of positional sense. So where's the weak point in the black position? Well, it's that d5 square. And so that's why the computer does not like this move, because although you trade these bishops, which you could argue is a good defender of the white king, the problem now is Artemiev can take, which he does, the pawn recaptures, and he can then go for this bishop g5 idea. What's the plan? Well, you pressure the knight, after it was defended, then you give up bishop for knight. Now, why would you want to do this? Surely you want to keep that dark squared bishop. Well, here's the point. You land this monster knight on the d5 square, and after the rook moves, you could even take here and then just leave this great knight versus bad bishop. However, probably Artemiev didn't do that because potentially the bishop could activate to e3 supported by this pawn after it recaptures. So instead, we see c3, but white's in the driving seat. The knight drops back. King h1 now played, and here both players are always just alert to the other one's ideas. Look at this queen, it's looking a bit trapped, hasn't got so many retreat squares, and so we see the knight now move away, challenge this one, but also give the queen a retreat. For example, if knight g1 came, but we see c4 on the board from Vladimir, so he's responding to this threat on his knight, and we don't see Magnus capture, because although you get rid of this good knight, well, after the pawn takes back, now there's a new dangerous asset in the position for white, which is this passed pawn. So instead, queen e6 drops back. This knight now supports. Pawn to f6, bolsters the centre a bit more, also opens this rook. And now here we see the queen slide to e2, not entirely sure why, but this is blitz chess, right? And if we look at the clock times, they're almost neck and neck now. Magnus doing a great job, but Vladimir a bit better. And now knight a6. What's the point of this move? Well, if you're not going to capture here, then you need to improve this piece. And after a3, we see the point. It comes back to b8, it's heading for c6 and d4 once again. Now queen e3 anticipates that, also pressures the c5 pawn. b6 covers, b4 puts more pressure, so Magnus captures, the pawn takes back. We see knight c6, and so this knight drops back to cover the d4 square. Queen d6, Magnus pressures that b pawn, it kicks on, drives back the knight, and the computer here wants to go knight e7, challenge this powerful piece. But Magnus goes here, and now pawn h4 is a great squeezing move. You know, all the white pieces are fairly well placed, so we see this kind of move trying to rip things open. Now knight e6, pawn h5, and after the rook's double, here Vlad, he just blinks for the first time. He's doing so well, but just before I show you the blunder he makes, if you want to improve your chess, then check out the next 21 seconds. It's absolutely for you. Is this you toiling away, trying to improve your chess? If so, you need AIMCHESS in your life. They'll take your recent game data from Lichess, chess.com, bring in personalized lessons and skyrocket your rating. Use the link down below, try it for free, and code EPIC at checkout will get you discount if you do want a premium plan. So Vlad plays knight g1. He should have gone pawn h6 immediately, just squashing this bishop into the corner. Then he can carry on with g4. But this allows Magnus to now go pawn f5, and here this pawn should now be captured, because when you carry on with this same plan, it's a big blunder. Now f4 can come, which Magnus finds, and it interrupts the connection between this queen and pawn. So after you capture, then black can take here, and there's just overwhelming pressure on this pawn. Literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 black pieces attacking it. You can't hold it. So Magnus moves the queen away because of course the pawn is pinned to the queen. So he gets out of that pin. I say Magnus, sorry, Vladimir. And now, because he's hitting this bishop, we see it capture on f4. The knight now hops into f3. It completes that journey, but Magnus can start consolidating his position. He's a pawn up. Now, the computer wants knight c5, top move. But Magnus starts with king g7. They're on low time. Now we see rook g2. Again, not the computer's favourite. It wanted to come here, but this is still a good move. And we'll see why in a moment. Because after knight c5, not favourite, but let's keep going, we see knight h4, and there's some nasty threats that white is now setting up, which is to check on f5, fork the queen and king, and if the rook recaptures, well, you take with the pawn, you've picked up an exchange, and still pressure on g6. So queen e6 from Magnus, great move. He gets out of the fork and adds cover to this square, and if white captures, well, the knight retakes back. So what do we see here? Well, rook g4, keeping pieces on the board and setting a nasty trap, which Magnus now falls into. So in this position, Magnus plays knight takes on d3, terrible blunder, queen blunder, because what he's calculated is that white can't take here, or else he simply picks up this rook, hugely winning. So okay, it looks like you're winning a pawn, but can you see the tactic which Magnus has overlooked? So the move that gets played is rook takes on g6, check. And this is a nasty opening of the queen, preparing to take here if the king recaptures. Well, sorry, the king can't recapture. And then when the queen takes, which was what was played in the game, well, now the knight recaptures. This is why the tactic is working, because the knight is supporting that rook check. And after the pawn takes, now you even pick up a knight to boot. So when the smoke clears, well, you've got a queen for a rook. This is hopeless for Magnus. He checks anyway, king g1, rook h5, but simple stuff now from Vlad. He starts trading down, check, the king goes, and he pushes this pawn, opening the attack here. So the pawn pushes on, e6, hits the rook g5 check. The king goes, rook g2 check, king back. And now here, this is where the commentators are just freaking.
But 10 seconds!
Yeah, Artemiev, what is he doing?
He's not pre-moving. He spent so much time.
There's no increment.
Ooh.
Oh, wow. There could be some checkmate threats around here.
Oh, the pawn's gone.
Oh my gosh, he's not going to win.
He needs to win in 9 seconds.
No, he's not going to.
He's not got any time. Just now there's going to be checkmates
Rook
against the
F4.
white king as
Did
well.
he find
Rook
it?
h4! Rook h4 is game over!
Who's checkmating
Oh
who?
my god!
Wow.
Where's the mate?
Black
Queen
king
Queen
moves.
d8?
Queen d2.
Queen d8?
It's gonna be
Rook
checkmate,
f6
F6.
only move.
The queen d5 is mate. Oh, he has a mate there. Queen
5
d5.
seconds on the clock!
It's going to be checkmate now.
Oh my god!
He's got it.
Yeah,
he has it.
He got it.
And
he
that
has
is
enough
it.
time. GG.
Wow. He's walked away. Did you
Yeah.
pre-move it? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you know,
Look at them walk away.
Normally bees sting once and they die, but Vladislav Artemiev will not die. He takes down the world champion.
Wow.
That was sick.
Vlad takes down the world champion Magnus, well, world champion for one more week, and he goes through to the semi-finals. If you enjoyed this one, do please hit like, hugely helps me out, and check out this video on screen for another exceptional Magnus Carlsen game. Thanks very much for watching and see you soon.